Hey guys, my name's Alex. I'm a software engineer and aspiring game designer, and I've decided to create an fantasy RPG inside Unreal Engine 5. And I decided to share my work along the way. Now, is this crazy? Yes. Can I do it? I don't intend to quit. So, there's a ton to get through, so let's get started. So, something critical about my game is that I didn't want to use any unnecessary pre-made assets. I wanted this to be my game, not just an asset flip. So, I had to learn Blender. It's been a long road, and I started off making trash like this, which looks kind of okay, but it is essentially unusable in my game. And now I can make stuff that's way more possible, like this, which is actually useful for what I'm trying to make. I also realized that everything I made had to be modular. I couldn't just create one big 3D model that was a house, for instance. It was way more effective for this type of game to create a bunch of building blocks that I could reuse throughout my world to create many different structures and buildings. So now that I had my 3D models, I had to texture them, and I knew there was a way to do this inside Blender, but honestly I found it really complex, at least for me. I didn't want to have to play with nodes. I wanted to be able to almost have the model in my hand and paint on the textures. That was the best way I could understand it. And thankfully, I eventually found Substance Painter. Now that I had the large building pieces that I needed, I also needed to add clutter to the environment, to add detail. And I mean, can you even really call it a fantasy game if there aren't random crates and barrels lying around? I don't think so. I did also end up buying a bunch of tree assets. I did try and learn how to create the trees from scratch. Essentially, the industry uses a piece of software called SpeedTree to create trees. And I tried to learn SpeedTree, and I spent honestly days trying to create something that looked realistic and possible within SpeedTree, and the number of hours it was taking to create something that was just not that great, like semi-possible, was just not worth it. And as a solo dev, I essentially had to choose where I was going to put my hours. So now that I had my assets, I supplemented them with megascans, which are essentially 3D scan models that are provided to you through Unreal Engine via something called a Quixel bridge. And they were great for assets that I needed, such as rocks and bushes, which are actually quite complicated to make. Putting all of these assets together and then educating myself on Unreal Engine landscapes, I was able to turn a grey blob like this into this. Honestly, I'm actually really proud of this. Now I had the basic assets to create medieval villages and towns, but I realized something was missing, something core to the fantasy genre, and that was dungeons. If you think of games like World of Warcraft, Skyrim, or even Lord of the Rings in general, dungeons are a critical component to those worlds and those stories. It's a place for the player to adventure to, where loot and enemies are found, along with stories that tell the player about the world that they're in. So I guess I had to make some dungeon assets. And now, these dungeon assets had to be reusable and modular, just like the other ones. But there was something unique about these. They had to convey to the player what type of environment they're in. Is the dungeon a bandit lair or an abandoned mine? The 3D assets had to tell a story to the player, and so I had to focus on that. So after adding critical assets like pillars and walls and entrances, I could put them all together and add some mood lighting. And honestly, it was looking pretty good. Now, there's a ton of backstory about why this type of dungeon exists in my world and why players will be able to come across and find them. And maybe in some future video I can get more into the lore and the backstory behind these places and other places they'll come across within the world, without going into spoiler territory, of course. I quickly realized that there was something missing from my dungeons, and it's something that all good dungeons have: a good dungeon door. So I got a bit creative, got better at using shaders within Unreal Engine, and I came up with this. think it looks pretty cool. Now, obviously, there is still so much to do. I've already started iterating on the combat system and the magic system within this game, and I can't wait to share it with you guys in future videos. And I'll be really happy if you guys stick around to check those out. I've also been working on some creature design and also armor and weapon design, and I've already got some of those models textured and ready to use. So, if you like this video, please hit the thumbs up button, I'd really appreciate it. And if you disliked it, that's fine too, but please also let me know in the comments why you disliked it so I can do better next time. Even if you just don't like my voice, any feedback is great. I really appreciate it. And I guess I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for staying till the end, if you are still here. Bye.